Hey everyone, it's Mark with Create and Kaptivate, and I'm here with my Mini 4 Pro and my RC2 controller. And if you're using this setup, or even if you're using the RC-N2 controller with the DJI Fly app, you'll know that there's a lot of information being displayed on the screen while you're flying. But there's also a lot of settings and additional information that you can quickly and easily access right from this main camera view screen. So that's what I'm going to be going through in this video. Now, for a lot of people, much of this may seem fairly basic, but I even learned a few things just making this video. And some of these things that are not so obvious can actually be quite useful. So I'm going to go through everything on this main screen from the obvious to the not so obvious. And there's a lot, so let's get into it. I'm going to start by going through the system settings screen. So if you swipe down from the top of the screen, you get this status bar that displays things like time, battery level, and Wi-Fi signal, not something I really look at. But if you swipe down twice from the top of the screen, you get this quick settings menu. And on the left side, you have notifications. And on the right side, a bunch of icons. Here you can turn on and off Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and airplane mode. There's a mute icon to turn off the controller audio. And below those, you have screen record and screenshot. Tap either of those to stop and start screen recording or take a screenshot. Now for these, you'll want to make sure that you have the memory location set correctly in your controller. And to set that, you can go back to the Fly app home screen, and then you'll want to select Profile, and then at the bottom select Settings, and then over on the left select Storage. Now you'll see current storage location, and mine is currently set to the SD card. And if I wanted to switch it, I could tap on internal storage, and then I'd have to confirm that I want to switch, but I actually don't, so I'll just cancel out of here. And that's how you would change the controller memory location. Now I'll just go back into the quick settings screen. And at the bottom, you can adjust the screen brightness and controller volume. Now in the top right corner, there's this hexagon icon. If you tap on that, it brings you to the system settings. Now in here, you can enable and set up your Wi-Fi. You can also get here from the quick settings screen by pressing and holding on the Wi-Fi icon. You can also turn on Bluetooth and pair devices. This too you can access from the quick settings screen by pressing and holding on the Bluetooth icon. There's some storage information, and you can also eject your external memory here. There's a compass calibration in case you need that, and some system settings, as well as reset options. If you were selling your drone, this is where you'd go to reset your device. And then there's some compliance information and user instructions. I'll just quickly go through the user instructions. There's only a few screens basically showing you about the different buttons and status lights. But this last screen I think is quite important, because it illustrates how you should position the antennas relative to the drone for the optimal signal. And that's it for the settings menu. All right, now that we're through that, I'm going to start going through all of the information and settings available to you right here from the main camera view screen. So, starting from the top left corner, there's a back button that will take you to the DJI Fly app home screen. And just tap Go Fly to get back to the camera view. Now, if you just power up the controller and you're not connected to the aircraft, you can still access the camera view. Just select Connection Guide, and in the top right, select Camera View. This is how you can set up waypoints without even having the drone powered up. And I show you how to do that in my Waypoints video. Now, you can also access the settings menus, but as I go through the different menus, you can see most of the information and settings is unavailable since you're not connected to the aircraft. All right, now to the right of the back arrow is the flight mode indicator. So when I change the mode switch on the controller, it will display what mode is selected. Now, when you first connect to the aircraft, it will default to normal mode regardless of which position the mode switch is in. So if the switch isn't set to normal, you will first have to switch it back to normal before you can select a different mode. Now, next to the flight mode is the system status, which displays the aircraft status along with other messages, and currently tells me takeoff is permitted. So I'll go ahead and take off. And now you can see it displays in flight. And below that, I get the home point updated message. But did you know if you tap on the flight status, you can see a bit more information and access a bunch of settings that you would normally have to access from the settings menus. Now, over on the right side of the screen, the first indicator shows you the battery level, and next to that shows the flight time remaining. And if you tap on either of those, you can see some additional battery information, like the time remaining until a return to home is initiated, the time until a forced landing, and the time until the battery is depleted. This is something I actually use a fair bit when capturing hyperlapses. Now, to the right of that is the signal strength indicator, which indicates the connection between the drone and the remote. You can also tap on it, but it doesn't give you a whole lot more information. The next two icons display the vision system status. The one on the left is the horizontal vision system, and the one on the right is the vertical vision system. Currently, the icons are white, which means they are functioning normally. And if I tap on them, you can see it says the vision sensors are normal. Now, if I turn off obstacle avoidance, the icons will turn red, and by tapping on them, you can see they are showing as unavailable. There are other reasons, including low light, that can cause the vision sensors to become unavailable. Next to the vision sensors is the GNSS status, which basically shows you the number of satellites found. And if you tap on it, it will give you a signal strength indication. The home point can be updated when the icon is white and the GPS signal is strong. Now, next to that, in the top right corner of the screen are three dots, and by tapping on those, you can access the main settings menu. Now, I have another video going through all of these settings, so I'll skip over that for now. So, moving on, down below that, right above the shutter record button, is the shooting mode icon. By tapping on that, you can see the various photo and video modes you have to choose from. The column on the left will display the different features you can choose from in each mode. And notice when I switch between photo and video mode, the options change. Also, you will see the shutter record button is red when video mode is selected and white when in photo mode. Now, to the left of the shutter record button, there are three icons. The top icon is used to switch between landscape and portrait mode. If you tap on it, the camera will rotate 90 degrees, and if you tap on it again, the camera will rotate back. Right below that is the zoom icon, which displays the current zoom setting. And you can adjust the zoom either by tapping on the icon, or if you tap and hold on the icon, the zoom slider will appear and you can adjust the zoom by sliding your finger up and down. And did you know you can also zoom in and out by sliding two fingers on the screen in a sort of pinching motion? Now, below the zoom setting is the focus setting. By tapping on that, you can switch between auto and manual focus. You can also press and hold on the icon to bring up this focus slide bar, and by sliding your finger up and down, you can adjust the focus distance. But notice if I drag it all the way to the bottom or the top, it puts it back into autofocus. And to be honest, I've never really used manual focus. I think it could be useful when taking photos, but the autofocus does a great job, and it's one less thing I have to worry about. Now, something I'm sure most people have come across is this box that appears when you tap on the screen. This is what the manual calls spot metering, and it's my understanding that it's adjusting the exposure based on that spot. And if you hold on the sun icon and drag it up and down, that adjusts the exposure value, and you can see the EV value below changing. Now, if you have your exposure settings in auto and you don't want them to change while capturing a shot, you can press and hold in the center of the box to lock the exposure. Now, if you're in photo mode and you switch to manual focus, you will see the spot meter changes to the focus meter. I assume it's adjusting the focus to that spot, but it's not something that I've used. Now, if you want to turn off the exposure lock, you can press and hold in the center of the circle or the box depending on what mode you're in, and the lock will disappear. Now I get the sun icon again, and you will see even with the focus meter, this still just adjusts the EV value. One other thing to note is if you have the exposure locked and you change any of the camera settings, the exposure lock will turn off. All right, I'm just going to take the drone up a bit higher to go through the rest of this stuff. Now, something that I find convenient is you can raise and lower the gimbal by holding your finger on the screen, until the gimbal adjustment bar appears. Then you can drag your finger up or down to raise or lower the gimbal. I often use this if I want to quickly raise or lower the gimbal because I usually have the dial on the controller set much slower. Now, just below the shutter record button is the playback icon. By tapping that, you can access the media library where you can preview photos and videos right after you've captured them. You can also delete and download files from here. And now that brings us to the camera settings. So first, in the lower right corner of the screen is the camera mode icon. And currently it's in auto, so we only have a few settings available. The first setting is the exposure value. And if you tap on it, the exposure value can be increased or decreased by sliding your finger left or right over the settings. Now, next to that, because I have video mode selected, I have the resolution and frame rate settings. And if I tap on those, I can now set the resolution to either 4K or 1080p. And I have a choice of several frame rates between 24 FPS and 60 FPS. To the left of that, I have my storage information. And again, because I'm in video mode, it displays the amount of recording time left on the current storage. If I tap on it, I get a bit more storage information, and I can switch between the micro SD and the internal storage. Also notice the icon next to the recording time also indicates which storage location is selected. Now I'm going to switch to photo mode, and you will see some of the settings change. I still have the EV or exposure value, which works the same as in video mode. But now instead of resolution and frame rate, I have format. And by tapping on that, I can select my photo format. If you select JPEG, you will get great quality photos that you can use as is. Now, if you select RAW, you'll get photos in a much flatter color profile, and that image will contain more information that can be used when color grading. But that's the key. You will have to color grade RAW images. Now, if you want the best of both worlds, you can select JPEG and RAW, and you will get both file types. That's usually what I have selected. You'll see I still have the storage indicator, but now since I'm in photo mode, it shows the number of photos I can take with the selected memory location. And once again, if I tap on it, I can switch memory locations. And that's the auto mode settings. Now, if I tap on the camera mode icon, it will switch the camera mode to Pro. And now I have a bunch of additional settings showing. The first group includes the shutter speed, aperture, which is a fixed f1.7, the ISO, and the EV value. If I tap on those, I can now adjust my ISO, shutter speed, and EV value. When you're in Pro mode, you can still have settings in auto, or you can turn off auto and manually adjust the settings. You will notice the exposure of the camera view changes as I change the shutter speed. But you'll also notice the ISO is also adjusting because it's still in auto. If I take the ISO out of auto and adjust it, this also changes the exposure, but now you can see the EV value has changed to MM, which stands for manual metering, but it basically shows the EV for the selected shutter speed and ISO settings. And you'll see it changes as I adjust the settings. When either or both the ISO and shutter speed are in auto, I can manually adjust the EV value by tapping on the plus or minus signs. And the shutter speed and ISO will adjust accordingly. And I can tap on this icon on the left to reset it back to 0. Now, if you tap on this bottom left icon, you'll get another set of options. You can also tap on the camera settings over to the left, and that will bring up these options as well. So at the top, you have the white balance, which you can put in manual, and by moving the slider, you can adjust your shot to be warmer or cooler. But I'll just set that back to auto, which is where I usually leave it. And if I'm worried about it changing while I'm recording, I'll either set my exposure lock or I'll put the white balance in manual before I start recording. Now, below the white balance, you can also select the photo format here. So if I want to change it, I can just tap on the selection I want. Now, when it comes to the aspect ratio, I want to show you something because I currently have it in 16:9, but you'd want to have this set to 4:3 to utilize the full sensor on the camera. And to demonstrate what I mean, if you look at the current camera view and notice what's in the frame, as I switch to 4:3, the image will seem smaller because it's not full screen, but if you look at what's in the frame, you'll have the same horizontal view, but you've gained extra area on the top and bottom. Therefore, you can create a 16:9 image by cropping the 4:3 image, and then you have that extra room on the top and bottom to vertically recenter your shot if needed. The next setting is resolution, and generally I leave this on 12 megapixels, but if you were printing your photos or wanted to enlarge them, you might want to select 48 megapixels to get the maximum resolution. But something I want to point out is if you change the resolution to 48 megapixels, you no longer have the option to zoom. Now, if I switch back to 12 megapixels, the zoom setting reappears. And here you can also check your memory and switch the storage location. Now, just to be clear, this is the storage in the drone, not in the controller. All right, that's all for photo settings. So I'm gonna switch over to video mode, and you'll see a lot of the same settings as we've just seen in photo mode. So all of the exposure settings are the same. You have ISO, shutter speed, and exposure value, and you would adjust them the same as you would in photo mode. So I won't spend a bunch of time here, and if I tap on this bottom left icon, there are some of the same settings we've seen before, like the white balance, and here we have the same options we had in auto for the video resolution and frame rate, and here as well, you can select the storage location. Now below storage, we have some new settings. The first one being color. Now, I often just leave this in normal, but if you want 10-bit color as opposed to 8-bit, you can change this to HLG. Or if you want to get the maximum dynamic range, you can change it to D-Log-M. But this will require color grading. As you can see, the video is captured using a flatter color profile. Now, you can turn on this color display assist option that appears when you select the D-Log color option, which changes the display to look a little more like what you're actually seeing. Now, one thing to note when using these 10-bit color options, the coding format is limited to H.265. In normal color mode, you have the choice between H.264 and H.265. The difference being, H.265 is a newer coding format with better compression, but also requires more computing power to play back, and some devices may struggle to play H.265 encoded video. So you can change that here. And below that, it shows the video format, but there's nothing you can change there. So that's it for the camera settings, at least what you have available right on the screen. And now over to the left, we have the flight telemetry. So the D is the horizontal distance from the home point, and above that is the horizontal speed. So if I start to fly forward, the distance actually decreases at first because I'm flying past the home point, but then starts increasing as I fly away. One thing to note is the horizontal speed is just that. It doesn't matter which direction I'm flying, so even if I fly backward, it just indicates what the horizontal speed is. Next to that is the height and vertical speed indication. So if I start to raise the drone, the height increases and the vertical speed shows a positive number. But unlike the horizontal speed, as I lower the drone, the vertical speed shows a negative number. And I just thought I would quickly demonstrate those. But now I want to go through all the displays we have in the lower left corner. So first, I'll tap on the icon to bring up the map display. So right off the bat, you can see the drone indicated by the blue arrow, and the direction of the arrow shows which way the drone is facing. You can also see the home point marked by the H. Now, if I tap on the minus sign in the upper right corner, that will zoom out a bit, and now you can see where the controller is, indicated by the blue dot. And the little arrow on the blue dot shows which direction the controller is facing. So as I rotate, the arrow will move accordingly. Now, if you look in the upper left corner, there's a north indicator, which means that the orientation of the map is locked so north is always facing upward. Now, if I tap on that, it changes so the map follows the controller orientation. So if I change the direction the controller is facing, the controller arrow continues to point upward and the map rotates. I prefer the other view, so I'll change it back. And then if I just tap in the center of the map, that swaps the camera view and the map view. Since I'm here, I'll go through the icons over on the right. So first, if I tap on the top icon, it brings up the zone settings. And you can select and deselect the zones that you want to display on the map. So if I zoom out, you can see what these zones look like. Now, the icon below that will just erase the blue trace that indicates where you have flown. And sometimes it doesn't completely clear the blue lines. I'm not sure why. Anyway, this next icon allows you to center the map on the drone or the home point. So by selecting the different symbols, it will either center the map on the drone or the home point. The next icon changes the map orientation to track the controller, similar to what we just seen on the mini map. And last, we have the layers icon, which allows you to select between a satellite view, a mixed view, or the standard view. And that's the map. So I can just tap on the center of the mini camera view, and that will swap the displays again. Now, you can minimize the map by tapping on the lower left corner, but if I open it up again, you can switch displays by tapping on the lower right corner or swiping left on the map. And that brings up the attitude indicator. Now the drone is in the center of the display, and you can see where the home point and controller are relative to the drone. If you look at the controller indicator, the circle is now green, and that's because it's facing the drone, also indicated by the arrow on the circle. So if I change the direction the controller is facing away from the drone, the circle changes to blue. And as I rotate back around, the circle changes back to green. This can be handy just to be sure that the controller is facing the drone and you're getting the best signal possible. Now, with the drone in the center of the display, I will start to rotate the drone. And as it rotates, the drone stays facing upward on the display, and the controller and home point rotate around the drone. Now, I can change the focus to the controller by tapping on the circle in the upper left corner. And now the controller is in the center of the display. The color still indicates if the controller is facing the drone, but now if I change the direction the controller is facing, the controller continues to face upward and the drone and home point rotate around the controller. And then if I tap on the triangle in the upper corner, it switches the view so the drone is in the center again. Now you can see that the bottom half of the indicator is a bluish green color. That's the attitude indicator. And the angle of the colored part indicates the roll axis of the drone, and the height of the colored part indicates the pitch axis. So when I move the drone from left to right, you can see the attitude indicator tilts left and right. If I move the drone forward and backward, the indicator rises and falls. When flying in wind, this can be a good indication of how strong the wind is, because the drone will have to roll or pitch to counter the wind. And one last thing, if you want to minimize it, just tap on the lower left corner. Now I'll open it up again, and if I tap on the lower right corner, or once again I could swipe to the left, this brings up the Vision Assist display. This will show you the view from the horizontal Vision Assist cameras. And there are 4 arrows on the screen to indicate which Vision Assist view is being displayed. So right now the top arrow is yellow because the forward view is being displayed. You can tap on any of the arrows to change the view to that direction. And if you start to fly, the Vision Assist view will switch to the direction the drone is flying. You'll also see a yellow line that extends from the center in the direction the drone is moving. And the length of the line indicates the horizontal speed of the drone. So as I fly in different directions, the Vision Assist view and the speed indicator will also change to the same direction. Now, if you want to keep the Vision Assist view fixed in one direction, you can tap and hold on the arrow to lock the view. And now, regardless of what direction the drone is moving, the Vision Assist view remains fixed. Now, if for some reason you want to make the Vision Assist view full screen, you can tap on the arrows in the top right corner, and that will swap the screen displays. And you'll have all the same controls and indications as the mini display. Now, if you want to remove the lock from the Vision Assist view, just tap and hold on the lock and it will disappear. Now, I can also tap on the arrows to change the view direction. But as the drone starts moving, the view switches to the direction the drone is flying. Now, to switch back to the camera view, just tap on the middle of the mini camera view and the screen displays will swap. And that's basically it for the map, attitude, and Vision Assist displays. Now, the attitude and Vision Assist displays also have some obstacle avoidance indications, but I didn't demonstrate that in this video. Alright, just a few last things to go through. So on the left side of the screen, right above the takeoff and landing icon, there is the waypoint icon. If you tap on that, it opens the waypoint setup. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this right now, but I have a whole video on it if you want to check that out. So I'll close this by tapping on the icon again. Now I'll also show you one way to bring up the smart shots. So if I pick a subject and draw a box around it by dragging my finger on the screen, it will select the subject, and then you will have the option to select from the various smart shot modes. Now active shots won't work because my subject needs to be a person, vehicle, or boat. But I could select POI or spotlight. And once again, I'm not going to go through all of these because that's basically a whole video in itself. So the last thing I'm going to go through is the different ways to update the home point. Because as you can see on the map, I've moved from the original home point. And when I get the drone to return to home, I don't want it to go there. While I'm on the map, I'll try erasing these lines again. And that one line is still there. It'll go away when I disconnect the drone. Anyway, in order to update the home point, I'll have to go into the main settings menu by tapping on the 3 dots in the top right corner of the screen. Then I'll have to scroll down in the safety settings until I see Update Home Point. So when I tap on that, it opens up this map view. And there are 2 icons in the top right corner. Currently the triangle or drone indicator is selected, so the home point is showing next to the drone, which is indicating where the updated home point would be, not the current home point. I didn't figure that out right away. But below the drone icon, there is a controller icon. If I were to select that, the home point would move beside the blue circle representing the controller. You don't have to choose one of those. You can also use your finger to drag the map around and position the home point wherever you want. And now if I tap on OK, it updates the home point to that location. But I don't want the home point there, so I'll have to go back and update it again. So I'll just go back into the settings and into Update Home Point. And once again, the drone is already selected. So I'll just hit OK, and now the home point moves to the location of the drone. But really, I want the home point to be where I am, so I'll go back into the Update Home Point once more, and now I'll select the controller icon and hit OK, and now the home point has been updated to the controller location. So now I'll go back into the camera view and tap on the Takeoff, Land, and Return to Home button, and I will select Return to Home, and now the drone will return to the new home point. And as it turns to face the home point, you can now see the Return to Home route and home point AR displays. The route allows you to see if the drone may encounter any obstacles while returning to home. And if you want to stop the drone for any reason, you can press the red circle with the X to cancel the return to home, or press the pause button on the remote. Now, as the drone starts to descend, it will tilt the gimbal downward and the drone shadow AR display will appear on the ground below. This will help you see where the drone is going to land. And I don't want it to land there, so I'm going to tap on the screen here to cancel the landing. Now I can just move it over to the landing pad with the help of the drone shadow, and now I'll get it to land. And that's it for this video. I hope you found it informative. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.